All right, I'm Landon Palmer with Film School Rejects, and I'm here with the filmmakers and subjects of the documentary here in competition at South by Southwest Film Festival. The documentary Pelada about amateur soccer all around the world. So let's go around the chairs and just say who you are and how you're affiliated with the film.
My name is Ferguson, and I'm a director as well as a cinematographer for Pelada.
My name's Ryan White. I'm a director, producer, and cinematographer for Pelada.
I'm Gwendolyn, and I am a director of Pelada.
I'm Luke, and I'm a director and one of the subjects with Gwendolyn of Pelada.
Okay. Well, as I was telling you guys before, first of all, my reaction to the film is I don't play soccer. I don't know much about soccer, but there's a lot of universal themes here that I feel can resonate with audiences that aren't familiar with sports, aren't really into sports. And one of them is definitely part of it is having to replace one thing you grew up loving to kind of project that love onto something else in order to pursue a fulfilled life. And to me, that's a universal theme that can resonate with people who are or are not familiar with sports. Luke, your mother in the film seems kind of more representative of how most Americans view soccer, I feel like. Whereas you go around the rest of the world and you see all these other countries that just absolutely love and adore soccer, and it's about their cultural ritual. And I was wondering if maybe you and Gwendolyn felt more at home in these countries that really venerated soccer the way that you guys did.
Yeah, definitely. It is a great feeling to be around people that have that same passion that you do, because here in the U.S., it really isn't much of a cultural ritual, like you said, and that was a great part about getting to travel to all these places and see how what we love is so loved by all these different groups of people, from the moonshine brewers in Kenya to prisoners in a Bolivian jail. It was great to have a connection like that with them. So it was just a blast making the film in that respect, getting to share our passion with them. And soccer is a universal, like you said, but more than that, it really is just about having a passion. And
certainly people, when we said we were Americans, everyone was shocked that two Americans were doing a soccer movie. They think that Americans aren't into soccer, and there's a shocking number of, there's a huge soccer population, a very melting pot sort of deal in our own country. And it's exciting to show the world that America plays soccer, and to show Americans that the world all plays this one game.
It's great. Why and how did you guys come up with the decision of also making Gwendolyn and Luke the subject of the film, and showing how you guys came to make the film rather than just start the film with the subject at its center? That one's an open one for anybody.
Well, you mean sort of including Luke and Gwendolyn as characters who had sort of a past with soccer?
And I was definitely struck by the fact that the story is very personal, but also you chronicled how Gwendolyn and Luke came to the point of wanting to make this documentary, which is something that you don't always see a lot in documentaries. Is why the filmmakers and the people involved and the people in front of the camera decided to become involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just sort of spoke to their sort of has-been background. I mean, like you said, this idea of having something that you're so passionate about in your life, having careers where they're sort of all-stars on the field, and then getting to that point where it's like, okay, like, we don't know if we can do this anymore, like, what's next? Like, all that sort of played into that mentality that they were sort of figuring out the whole trip. Coming from that place of being in the glory to then, figuring out what's next. So just even coming up with the idea to take off on that trip was a part of their characters, I think it really added to that element, like, where you can kind of feel, like, Gwendolyn's past when she talks about not becoming the best, or, you can kind of feel that throughout the film.
I think like the biggest risk with our movie from the beginning, we talked about this before we even went to South America, which was the first part, was that it could be a very segmented movie. It could just literally be vignettes, one after the other, and while these might be great to watch, there's no reason that someone would press pause in the middle of the movie and not be able to watch it the next day. So we knew from the very beginning we wanted it's just like all these people they were going to be meeting along the way, we thought would be the good thread. I didn't. I mean, maybe you guys disagree, but I don't think we knew it was going to be such a strong story at the beginning. Like, people are really reacting to the story of them, and I think we more did it as a connector at the beginning, you know. And I don't think we expected to get such richness and such, like you said, people really relating from all different walks of life to their story. So I think we're thrilled with the two narratives that we have going, you know, like the mini ones and the overarching one of them.
Did all four of you know each other before y'all got involved in this movie?
Everyone knew
Gwendolyn's the common denominator.
Beck and I were teammates at Duke. Beck and I were living together, and Ryan was my camper partner in college, so that's it.
So all just kind of came together rather serendipitously. One of the scenes that definitely stuck out to me was the one where you two get kicked out of the Austrian game for having the fake tickets. And to me, part of that scene kind of is representative of the whole of experiencing the film, because you leave that game and then you see the paramedics playing the firemen. And because this is a movie about Pelada, it makes sense that you kind of transition from the big professional realm to just soccer as just a part of every person's culture, whether or not they're professional. And I'm wondering if you guys ever consider at any point, like, looking at the more professional side more thoroughly in documentary, or what it is that you felt like you gained from looking at everyday people playing these soccer games in these Pelada tournaments.
There's a lot of talk about how soccer is the universal, everyone plays soccer, and it's known as being the world's game, but no one ever really focuses on pickup, which is the absolute best display of the spectrum of sports. You've got all ages, all races, all genders, all classes, all play this one game, and yet pickup is the neglected part of the game, and that no one has focused on it before. So we wanted, it just lets you see pockets of lives that you know, see that matters. We wanted to use it to tell the whole story.
And it's easy to see the motivations for somebody who makes $9 million a season to play for Man U or something like that. Like, what was really interesting to us was to see, like, people who incorporated soccer into their daily life, and like there's no fame, there's no glory. It has something to do, and like, you know, we found like it all kind of came from a different place. And sometimes it was pride, sometimes it was, you know, just that's really interesting to see those different motivations and stories and get such a power.
And it's so much more beautiful than the pristine pitches with the lights, and just getting to have, you know, to be on a field that used to be a garbage dump, and then to have a giant sand castle in the background. It's so pretty, and there are uniforms, so everyone is wearing, you know, whatever they work sometimes, and it's beautiful.
I think that like opens up our audience to, you know, like I'm not a soccer player. I would rarely be interested in seeing a movie about the lives of professional players and, you know, what they do off the field. Whereas this, I think, really broadens the appeal. So hopefully people who could care less about soccer also are just interested in seeing how people live.
I'm going to try to get this closer because I just want to make sure to get everything they are saying. Just kind of jumping off of that, there is a lot of a bit of an exploration in the film about football as a universal language, that despite the language barriers, you are all able to speak the language of soccer and share that together with people who you might not have any other, you know, anything else in common with. But there's that one scene in Jerusalem where the guy, you know, explains how soccer in many ways is not a great mediator, that it will not, you know, have people overcome certain cultural boundaries that might be insurmountable. And I was wondering if it was important for you guys to look at soccer as a universal language without romanticizing it in this film.
Definitely.
That's well said. That's
Definitely. I mean, like, I don't think we could say that better. Like, seeing soccer and all of the sides of it, whether it's good, whether it's bad. You know, we didn't want to make a movie with a cliche message because we don't feel that that's what it is. You know, it's more complicated than that. And stumbled into that situation in Jerusalem, and you know, the interview with that one Jewish guy who was at the court, who was very candid about it. I mean, it was a crazy experience for us to like see that, to really feel it. But yet they're all there at that court. You know, it's I don't know, it just sort of talks to the different layers. You know, it's not one cliche hold hands and everybody plays together and loves it. Sometimes it's tough. So.
But at the same time, you know, Arabs and Jews were playing together on one court, and yes, there was tension and there was fighting, but I mean, we've had the fight of whether it was or was not a goal in every country, and it's still, people come together to play on one court, which is still powerful.
Yeah, it was still a start, but you know, it's not the be all end all. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't something that could bring us all together and make us sing Kumbaya, but it could bring us all together. So it's a start, but it's not the end.
I mean, I think the cool thing about that story was that, again, like soccer was our entrance into a story that was layered with politics, that was layered with culture, that was layered with religion, and so it was our angle to be just like, you know, the world is more complicated than it all seems, you know. So it just was that sort of that metaphor where things are just not easy to define.
A lot of things in this movie seem like they were very hard to put together logistically, whether it's language barriers, finances, run-ins with the law, and then I mean especially everything that you went through in Iran. I like that the film was so transparent about the struggles of making the film that you're seeing, especially when it comes to documentaries, and there's always such an issue about where truth lies with respect to documentaries, that it's great to see filmmakers that are so transparent about the process of the film within the film itself. And I'm just wondering what some of the logistics were that you guys had to go through that we might not have seen on the film, especially as far as communication and the language barriers go.
I'm worried that your computer might.
Oh.
Like it's sort of blowing around, but I just. Sorry. I just couldn't bear to see that go on the table.
Thank you very much.
Well, they're on camera, so
So,
You guys actually probably took on a lot more with some of that.
well, we all Googled a lot to try and find anything, but there was also just, I don't know how it would have been done without the internet, because we would try and find someone, some sort of contact wherever we were staying, and having that helps you so much to not get robbed, find the games, and hopefully have someone translating. It didn't always work out like that. Like when we went into the West Bank, while we were staying in Jerusalem, we just did a day trip, and we didn't know the language, and we didn't have anyone with us, and we just brought the soccer ball. And within 20, 30 minutes, after
wandering the streets.
wandering the streets to a couple different places, we had a crew that brought us to a makeshift field on a dirt parking lot. So it was great just seeing the way that even if you didn't have a plan, the people around you could take you in and support the idea, because, like you said before, it is a universal language, and it's just something that people innately understood.
Well, and the nature of pickup is spontaneous, and there isn't going to be a game at the same time, in the same place, in the same way ever, and that's the beautiful part about pickup. But it's also what makes it tough to make a movie about, because you can drag yourself all the way to the Bolivian jungle, but who knows whether that game will still go on. But it was a lot of email. We had people emailing us saying, "Hey, come stay with me in Ecuador," and you were always staying with a friend of a friend, and they would help you. They'd tell you, "Okay, you can find the game here." But language is, tough. These guys are all. He's Mr. Portuguese, and they battled Spanish. Ryan understood Spanish too, so it was really just me in the dark there. But that's only South America, and then you get into countries where we didn't know how to say hello, and in Hungarian, and that that makes it interesting, but it is the soccer ball. You have your ball, and there's really, but figuring out interviews, and I mean, for example, in Israel, we just got really lucky that there was a guy who happened to speak English.
Well, and with the Arab guys in Jerusalem, we were interviewing them. We literally could not speak to them, and so it was the most bastardized interview in the world. We are so lucky to have gotten good sound bites because we're basically saying things to them that they don't understand, gesturing like crazy, and had no idea what they were saying back to us and what they were talking about. Then we got to translate, and we're like, hell yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
cool.
it was like kind of like what Nolan was saying. A lot of things started off out of sort of poor filmmaker. Like we had to find places to stay that were free because we couldn't connect. But then we realized we find places to stay with locals, and we're way better off because not only do we have sort of a pulse on where we can find pickup games and where to go, but then we might have someone who we can convince to come along with us and help us translate and stuff. But it was bizarre. I the whole time I remember thinking we are just running low on karma. Like it's going to happen. Like something is going to. But every place we went, like there was always something. Like whether it was speaking in English to Arabs who don't speak English, and somehow getting really candid like interviews out of them, or I don't know.
It's in China when we're telling the guy who let us borrow his cell phone what to ask the monks, and then he would ask them on his cell phone, and then we'd shoot whatever their answer was. If they would pass the cell phone back, we'd tell them to ask another question.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, Luke and Gwendolyn are being led somewhere by a monk in a monastery in China, and we're like off to the races. Here we go. We don't really know where it's going to take us. I mean, I think a big part of it was having the right attitude. We were always ready to go and see where it took us. I mean, that was the whole idea, right? It was like, we may end up playing badminton with monks, but somehow it will work out.
Well, how were you guys able to get wind of the situation in Bolivia, that the best place to play pickup in Bolivia was in prison, and you see you guys bribing some of the prisoners to play soccer within their prison, and then later on you're filming inside a place where you're being questioned by Austrian police. How were you able to bring a camera in those places and get a lot of that footage?
Okay, starting with the prison. Well, it kind of makes sense, right? That people who don't have jobs and are in a prison all day.
I can't remember. Well, we started off with this, like, the prison is sort of notorious for tourists being able to, like, slip a 20 and kind of get a tour.
People used to bribe their way inside for drugs, backpackers would, and so I was like, well, maybe we can bribe our way in to play soccer. And so we got online and just looked up this prison like crazy, and we heard that they have crazy soccer games and that they actually bet on
It's
these
one of the
games.
industries.
And we
really
happened to be
intense.
staying like right across the street from the prison. Like our hostel was on the same square as the prison. So we went to the internet cafe next door, where we made friends with the internet cafe owner. He knew a guard outside the prisoner, so he ran over, talked to them for us, and it led to this whole treasure trail of having to meet with different people and get different permissions. And we didn't put the whole process in the movie. It wasn't as simple as just walking.
But in the end, most of the administrators were like, it's got to be okay with the guys on the inside. It's basically how this prison works. I mean, it was kind of all understated. Like Luke and I were in a couple of conversations where, like, between our Spanish, we walk out and we're like, I think they're going to bring us in there. We've got to negotiate with these guys.
It's
So
all surreal.
that's when we turned the cameras on and we were able to sort of capture that. And that was actually one of the safer places, I think, that we ended up. Once we paid the money and we had somebody standing, like Ryan and I basically had like bodyguards during the game. And that was rolling.
What was the most dangerous place? Iran or?
Iran felt pretty safe.
Iran felt very safe.
Yeah. That felt more dangerous on sort of we could get in trouble. But as far as pure safety,
That scene in Argentina where we played in the slum of Buenos Aires was, I'm not sure that scene actually shows how scared we were when we were there. Like, it was probably the dumbest decision we made, and it was early on, and it was scary. We say in the movie that a policeman told us, it's your life, not mine, but we'd also heard about a news crew had just had their heads bashed in the day before and their cameras stolen. I mean, it definitely speaks to the magic of our movie, I think, and what they were show how your neighborhood plays football versus all these other neighborhoods around the world, then they were on board with us, and I think protected us more than any outsider could go in and be protected.
And Kenya was just like that as well,
Kenya,
because Kenya, that's a fairly dangerous slum, but we had a crew of people that, you know, said, you all are protected, you're with us, you know.
And by crew of people, we never had anyone hired or anything like that. It was literally just friends of friends who take you in, and because you play soccer,
Strangers.
or strangers. Yeah, it was. I mean, in Argentina, it was literally we just walked in without knowing a person, and as soon as people see that you're a player, you're viewed as a friend. So they kept us.
And then, like, to go back to your earlier question of how we got cameras in certain situations, we shot on 2 cameras, and then we had like a little throwaway camera that was, like $1,000 HD camera that we used in very dangerous situations or very sort of covert situations where we didn't want to be noticed that much. So like a lot of Iran was shot on that camera, and Austria was too. But the reason we were allowed to go into Austria, into the police station at that professional game, was because we had footage of Peter Pan. So we actually kind of negotiated with the police and said, oh, we'll show you our footage if we can just kind of film what's going on. So we had this little camera and we're filming
I
them,
didn't even
watching
know
the
they had
footage.
okayed that. You
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
kind
Well,
of...
it was sort of, it was.
We weren't allowed in the game, you know, we didn't buy tickets because we couldn't afford it. So we were literally just they had the throwaway camera with them. We were trying to just film them walking to the game and thought we would see them afterwards and they would get some crappy footage of a professional game.
And then everything
might
sort
use
of
that.
unraveled at the ticket
So we
gate.
kind of had to negotiate our way into to show the footage.
Well, and there were situations where we were filming undercover. I mean, see, when we walk up to the prison, Rebecca is holding the camera and pretending like it's off, and which allowed us to.
Turning the red light off is the key.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some moments where Ryan and I have done one of these things where you just kind of hold it and you're like looking over here.
And that is a lot of the police station, actually. A lot of those shots, actually,
Yeah.
They realized we were filming covertly at some point.
Yeah. I think what happened was I got the little guy out and asked him if I could shoot a little bit of the tickets, because the tickets say like the cake side of life, and there's it's like all this stuff that's sort of messed up.
Hilarious.
And then I was holding the camera, and then things are happening, and I'm just kind of like, maybe we're getting this, and and it just kind of evolved until I think Ryan got snapped at some point a little bit later.
Iran was shooting. There was difficulty with shooting in Iran a lot too. After we got reported to the government, we had to be with a tour guide in Iran because all Americans have to have basically a minder, making sure that you're not doing anything atypical. And so after that first day when we got reported to the government, our minder did not really want us taking out the cameras much at all. And he would actually kind of run the other direction sometimes when we would bring him up.
Yeah.
And that made it easier
He would stay in the car at the end because he just couldn't deal with how nervous it made him. But I mean, we raised all that money to go to Iran, and then it was really tough to film, and we just thought we were gonna leave the country without any footage, and it ended up.
Yeah, and at that point, we'd made it that far. We were like, we were not, I probably stubborn and maybe stupid to a certain extent, but it was like we had this film, and like that was sort of our last stop, and it was like we are going to tell this story, like however we can. So.
Yeah, well, it's great because it seems like for all the stories within the film about the subject that you're filming, there are just as many stories of how you guys actually got to that place to be able to do that. As my closing question, I guess I'll ask, what are some of the plans with this film? Where might some of our readers that aren't at South by this week be able to see your film in the future?
We're planning on doing the festival thing first. So this is our world premiere at South by Southwest, and then we've gotten into 4 or 5 festivals in the spring, in April and May. So we're going to mainly be showing our movie in festivals, but hopefully we'll be hosting screenings like all over the country and all over the world, really, because we would love to get theatrical distribution and a television deal, but a really cool part about our movie is the soccer community and all these people who are waiting to see this film since no one's ever made a film on pickup. So hopefully we'll be hosting lots of screenings in cities around the country.
So contact us if you want to see the film.
I mean, we're definitely doing the whole social media train. So we're on Facebook, we're on the web, we're on Twitter. So yeah, I mean, like like there's been a lot of responses from people contacting us, like how could we get a screening in this city or that city, and so it would be really amazing if we could sort of mobilize some volunteers to put on stuff and get it to as many places as we can.
All right. Well, this has been great talking to the filmmakers and cast of Pelada. Thank you very much. It's a great movie. I hope you guys have a great time in Austin.
Thank you.
Thanks.